Most people spend months, sometimes even years, planning how to move to Thailand. They research visas, healthcare, the cost of living, and where they're going to live. But there's one question that hardly anyone asks themselves. What if one day you had to move back home? Could you actually afford it? Now, I want to be clear, I love living in Thailand, and if I had to choose again, I'd still make the same decision. But after many years living here, I've realised that retiring abroad isn't just about planning how to get here. It's also about planning for what happens when life changes. Money can become tighter than you expected, health can change overnight, you might suddenly miss your family more than you ever imagined, or your personal circumstances could change in ways you never saw coming. The reality is, many people spend so much time planning their move to Thailand that they never stop to ask themselves what it would actually cost if they ever needed to leave. And that could become one of the biggest financial decisions of your retirement. So in this video, we're going to look at why people return home, what it really costs to start over, and why having an exit plan might be just as important as planning the move here in the first place. The first thing I'd say is this. Most people don't move back because they stop loving Thailand. They move back home because life changes. When people first retire here, they focus on building a new life. And for many people, it works out exactly as they hoped. But retirement isn't static. It might last 20 or 30 years. And during that time, your circumstances can change. For some people, it's money. Their pension doesn't stretch as far as expected. Prices rise, exchange rates change, or unexpected costs start eating into the savings. For others, it's health. As we get older, priorities naturally change, and being closer to family or having more support can suddenly become much more important. Then there's family itself. You might be happy living thousands of miles away, but missing birthdays, Christmases, grandchildren growing up, or aging parents can become harder over time. I've experienced that myself. There are moments when you really miss family, and that's just part of living abroad. None of this means retiring in Thailand was the wrong decision. It simply means that a retirement plan needs to consider not just how you're going to build your life here, but what your options would be if your life ever changed. For many retirees, money is the biggest reason their plans change. Not because they made bad decisions, but because retirement is difficult to predict over 10, 20 or even 30 years. When you first move to Thailand, everything can feel very affordable. Your pension goes further, your everyday costs are lower, and financially it can feel like you've made the right decision. But things can change. Inflation affects every country. Thailand is still affordable compared to many Western countries, but the cost of living today isn't what it was years ago. Then there's the exchange rates. If your income comes from overseas, you're relying on that exchange rate every single month. A weaker pound, dollar or euro can quietly reduce your spending power without your lifestyle changing at all. Unexpected expenses can also catch people out. A car needs replacing, your home needs repairs, healthcare costs increase, or you simply find that everyday expenses are slowly creeping up year after year. And one thing many people underestimate is how long retirement can last. If you retire at 60, your money may need to support you for another 25 or 30 years. The budget that feels comfortable today may not feel the same 15 years from now. Now that doesn't mean retiring in Thailand is a bad financial decision. For many people, it's one of the best decisions they've ever made. But it does mean you need a backup plan. Because eventually, you may have to ask yourself, if my money starts running out, What's plan B? Would you stay in Thailand and adjust your lifestyle? Would you move somewhere cheaper? Or would you need to return home and start again? These are not easy questions, but they're much easier to think about while you still have choices, rather than when you're forced into a decision. And sometimes the reason people return home isn't money, it's health. It's something most of us don't like thinking about, especially when we're fit, active, and enjoying retirement. But the reality is, none of us are getting any younger. One of the great things about Thailand is their lifestyle. But even with the healthiest lifestyle, things can change. A serious illness, a fall, or a condition requiring ongoing treatment can completely change your priorities. For many retirees, the question isn't just about healthcare. Thailand has excellent hospitals and many people receive fantastic care here. The bigger question is often, who looks after you afterwards? If you need ongoing support or help with everyday life, being close to family can suddenly become more important than the lifestyle you originally moved here for. I've known people who choose to return to the UK because they wanted access to the NHS or simply because they wanted to be closer to family during a difficult period. Everyone's situation is different and there's no right or wrong decision. But the important thing to understand is this: your health can change much faster than your retirement plans. Very few people wake up one day and decide, I want to leave Thailand. More often, circumstances make the decision for them. You don't usually plan to leave because of your health. Your health makes the decision for you. And that's why it's worth thinking about these things before you need to. If your health changed tomorrow, what would your plan be? Would you stay in Thailand? Would you have the support you need? Or would returning home be the better option? And sometimes the reason people return home has nothing to do with money or health. It's family. When you first retire in Thailand, you're focused on the exciting parts of the move. A new lifestyle, better weather, and a fresh start. But while you're building a new life here, life back home keeps moving. Children grow older, grandchildren are born, parents get older. You miss birthdays, Christmases, family gatherings, and those small everyday moments that you can't replace. I'll be honest, even I've had times where I've really missed my family. Video calls are great, but they can never replace being there in person. For some people, that feeling becomes easier over time. For others, it gets stronger. Eventually they realise that being close to people they love matters more than continuing to live abroad. And there's no right or wrong answer. Retirement isn't just about choosing the cheapest place to live or finding the perfect weather. It's about building a life that can still feel right years down the road. Because sometimes what you value most changes. Another thing worth thinking about is your visa situation. Now, I'm not saying Thailand is suddenly going to change all the rules tomorrow, but immigration rules can change, financial requirements can change, and your own circumstances can change too. The visa that works perfectly for you today may not always be the best option in the future. The important thing to understand is that your ability to stay in Thailand is something you should always plan for. Before moving here, it's worth asking yourself, if I couldn't stay in Thailand for some reason, what would I do? Would you have enough money to move home? Would you have somewhere to live? Would you be prepared to start again? Hopefully you'll never need that backup plan, but having one doesn't mean you're expecting things to go wrong. It simply means you have the options if life takes an unexpected turn. The people who tend to have the smoothest retirements aren't the ones who assume nothing will ever change. They're the ones who think ahead and prepare for difficult possibilities. One of the biggest things people underestimate is the cost of going back home. When people imagine returning, they often think, well, I'll just buy a flight and go. But it's rarely that simple. The flight is probably the easiest part. What about everything that comes afterwards? If you've been living in Thailand for years, you may need to ship belongings back, find somewhere to live, and start rebuilding a routine. Then there are all the costs that come with starting again. A rental deposit, furniture, bills, transport, the higher day-to-day costs of living in many Western countries. For someone who has been retired for years, that adjustment can be much harder than people expect. Because the biggest challenge isn't just getting back home, it's rebuilding a life there. You may have left behind your old home, your possessions, your previous routine, and even some of your connections. So the question isn't simply, could you afford a flight back? The real question is, could your retirement budget actually cover starting over? Moving to Thailand is a big decision, but moving back can be an equally big one. And that's why having a realistic plan for both directions is so important. Now, I want to make one thing clear. None of this means retiring in Thailand is a bad idea. Personally, I'd make the same decision again tomorrow. I love my life here. But the people who enjoy retirement the most aren't the ones who assume nothing will ever change. They're the ones who planned ahead. So don't just plan how you're going to move to Thailand. Plan what happens if one day you need to leave. Because the smartest retirement plan isn't just having a plan to get here. It's having a plan for the way home as well. If you've enjoyed today's video, you can click on the screen here. I think you'll enjoy this next one. Thanks for listening. I'll see you on the next one, guys.